You are listening to the voice of the Frontline Protector here at the Private Officer Beat Radio. Every week you'll hear breaking news, topics of training, information for the industry of security, public safety, and law enforcement. So strap in, hang on, we're about to speed off in this episode of the Private Officer Beat Radio. Shoot to wound. A new way of training law enforcement officers seems to have begun, at least in one community in Georgia. This thought is not new, but the attempt to provide the training in an organized manner certainly is. Shoot to kill has been the standard training for law enforcement for decades. Go to any academy, go to any in-service training, and you're going to find when we're talking about lethal force training that we're talking about ending the threat, stopping immediately the threat that has been posed by an offender. But now, one police chief has a different opinion. And it's not the first time that he's ruffled feathers, not the first time that he caused wakes in the water in law enforcement. In the small town of LaGrange, Georgia, the police chief there is teaching his officers not to shoot to kill, not to put that fatal in to a suspect, but he seems to have given in to the politics, to the activists, to the call of the moment, laughable at times when civilians and the media say the same thing over and over. Why didn't you shoot the gun out of his hand? Why couldn't you all just shot him in the leg? Why did you all have to kill him? He got mental health. Why didn't you just wound him once? Police Chief Lou Dekmar of LaGrange, Georgia, said he's heard the cries. He's listened to the people. So now, putting his officers through various scenarios on a range, with paper targets, by the way, pretty static if you ask me, scenario-based or not, he and his training officers have begun a new program. It's called Shoot to Incapacitate. Not shoot to kill. Challenging decades of police training around the use of deadly force. Instead of teaching his officers, he said, to always aim for the available center mass of the body, usually, of course, the upper torso and the head, he's teaching them to aim for areas that may be less lethal, like the shoulder, the arm, the leg. I got news for you. Hit them in the artery in any of those locations, even if you're talking about the limbs, and you're going to have an instant bleed out. You better have enough tourniquets to apply to the arms, the legs, and all of those areas that's not the upper torso or the head. The course is the first kind in Georgia and probably in the U.S. Is it always the optimal method of shooting suspects? No. Do we always have to put them down lethally, kill them? Many times. But now we're taking extra moments, seconds, steps to make sure that we don't have a lethal shot, that we're aiming for the shoulder, the leg, the arm. And guess what? There's a bigger possibility that that bullet is going to miss and hit a bystander, even another officer. Go through a window, go through a building. The threat that someone else may unintentionally be injured or even killed will be greater than ever. It's already great when we're in a shootout with a suspect and bullets are flying here, there, and everywhere. While it all sounds good, oh, we're not going to shoot to kill. We're only going to shoot to wound. We're going to hit them in the abdomen, the leg, the pelvic region. Hope he wasn't planning on having children, by the way. Yes, police fatally wound about 1,000 people every year. Now some statistics are saying, well, 25% of those fatal shootings involve situations where the mentally ill was involved. I got news for you. I don't care if it's a 10-year-old or a 30-year-old mentally ill person who's pointing a gun at me. I'm going to use the same amount of force, legal and necessary. Police Chief Deckmar says, in my responsibility and in my opinion, I believe police leaders need to be looking at other options so that deadly force encounters isn't always the necessary end. Again, I've got news for you, Chief. That's all in the hands of the suspect. Drop the weapon! Drop that gun! Drop that knife! Drop the weapon! Police officers often give numerous commands, and when there's multiple officers on scene, they're all shouting the same commands. Drop the weapon! Drop that weapon! We don't want to shoot you! Drop that knife! Drop the gun! It's up to the holder of the weapon as to what level of force, if any, will be used. I'm your host today, Rick McCann, founder and CEO of Private Officer International and Armor College, a 40-plus year of law enforcement and public safety, private security. I've seen lethal force incidents. Most of the videos that I view every single day that occurs across the country shows at least 99% of the time the officer had no other choice. Well, why didn't he use a taser? Well, if you weren't sitting there being a Monday morning quarterback and you looked at the video or you got off your butt and went out and did a ride-along with police in your community, you'd see officers do use beanbags and less lethal OC, taser, voice commands. But it doesn't work many times. And they're left with no option but to use lethal force. I don't think that we should be training our officers, law enforcement or private security, to do anything but stop the threat. Does that mean we got to shoot them 40 times? No, of course not. If we shoot that person once and he's down and no longer a threat, that's how it should be. But if he still has the gun in his hand and he's still moving around and he's trying to get up, or he's still firing at the officers, security, or law enforcement, I got to tell you, we need to end the threat. We're going to talk about this subject for a long time to come as more and more agencies begin to bend like a weak willow tree to the community's outcry, to activists, to Black Lives Matter, and other groups that know not a thing about law enforcement, not a thing about facing deadly force, not a thing about addressing people who are armed and a public safety risk. They all got the answers, but they don't know what it's like to be there. Also on the radio show today, we're going to be talking about the fallen but not forgotten. Over the last 18 years that Private Officer International has been around, we have seen several thousand security officers who have died while on duty. Just in 2021, 31 security officers have been murdered. 31 murdered so far this year. On an average, about 70 to 90 are murdered. We're not talking about COVID. We're not talking about some little car wreck. We're not talking about losing your life because you fell off the roof, fell down the stairs. No, we're talking about homicides, murder at the hands of someone else. Fallen but not forgotten. We're going to go over the last 15 months of brutal killings of private security and private police. And we're going to go over some of the situations and incidents that they were involved in and how they died, most often alone, without backup, without radio communications, without anyone knowing about it, until mostly hours later, in some cases even a day later, before someone found them. This episode, we're also talking about sign-on bonuses. When we come back, many security companies are joining other types of businesses and offering hundreds, and in several cases, thousands of dollars for sign-on bonuses because they are hurting for employees, just like every other type of business. We're also going to be talking about the upcoming memorial services, how we need you to get involved right away, and also about the new Private Police Academy and Private Police Association, and a whole lot more. Remember, check out our friends at Body Armor USA. We've got what it takes to protect you. No two ways about that. We've got the best body armor. We've got protective clothing. We've got protective gloves. We've got stab-resistant vests. Security, corrections, law enforcement, public safety, we got it. Body Armor USA, check them out on the net. Give them a call today. They will help save your life. We're coming right back. This is the Private Officer Beat Radio.
Human trafficking is slavery.
And it happens all over America.
Any child, any woman, any man could potentially become a victim of human trafficking.
I am a victim of labor trafficking.
I was victim of child sex trafficking, but now I own my body.
Human trafficking is any kind of forced labor.
It can happen to anybody.
I am a mother.
I am an author.
I am a son.
I'm an advocate.
I am an educator.
I'm a sister.
I am a brother.
I'm so much more than what happened to me.
I am strong.
I am brave.
I am outspoken.
I am compassionate.
I am a survivor.
I'm a survivor.
I am a survivor.
I am a survivor.
I am a survivor.
I am a survivor of human trafficking.
You wouldn't do that. So why do you do this? The Distracted driving kills an average of 9 people and injures over 1,000 every day in America. Put down your phone. Lives depend on it. Don't drive intoxicated. Don't drive intoxicated. A sobering message from AAA.
Across the country right now, private security officers have an opportunity like never before. Major security companies such as Securitas, Allied Universal, the GEO Group, GuardSmart, and regional companies like Archangel, Protection One, and others, all providing sign-on bonuses ranging from $500 to $2,000. They're joining other companies, restaurants, retailers, all sorts of businesses that are hard up to find people who want to work, and it's costing them money. Without people at the restaurant, they can't sell to customers. They can't cook the meal, clean the dishes, clean the tables, get people in and out. Same thing with sales. Many retailers, many service industries are hurting for people. So they're offering big bonuses to sign on. One security company, I should say, is offering $2,000 for anyone hired right now, but they must stay at the company for 180 days, 6 months, to receive that bonus. In at least 2 states that we know of, Montana and just recently South Carolina, they've canceled. They've opted out of the federal unemployment benefit program that was enacted for the pandemic and currently extended by the American Rescue Plan. But those 2 states have opted out. They're not going to receive any additional federal funding for unemployment because they say it's preventing people from going back to work. And, you can't expand a business. You can't grow a business. The economy is beginning to boom again. People are back on vacation. People are visiting other places, traveling, stopping in hotels, restaurants. Companies want to continue expanding and growing. But if you're sitting at home playing Xbox, watching reruns on TV, sleeping until noon, and getting fat, well, guess what? They can't do it. So 2 states have opted out of that unemployment benefit, and others are considering it as a way to stimulate growth for these businesses. I don't blame them. We're hiring. You're hiring, everybody's hiring, but we just can't get the people. If you're currently on unemployment, you might want to expect that's going to run out soon as more states cancel that to help businesses within their state. And take advantage of that $1,000, $2,000, $500. Right now, Allied Universal is saying that in Santa Fe, Mexico, they're offering $900 immediately sign-on bonus to work security for the Santa Fe public schools. And that's just one example of what's available out there for you. So get off the couch and get back to work. Help the economy. Come on, man. We're all in it together. If you're not working and he's not working and they're not working, our companies are going to close up because they just don't have the people. Remember, working is the way of life. It's how our country was founded and how we need to help the economy and the country right now. Hey, remember every year we have that private officer memorial service. We go across the country. We make numerous stops. We honor those killed in the line of duty. We educate people about the new frontline protective team. And we also work with the media to get the word out. Well, last year we did have to sideline that whole program because of COVID, but we're back out. We're out. In fact, we plan on doing a really big circle throughout many states. And what that entails is we stop at locations where we're invited. We hold a memorial service. We present the facts about what private security on the front lines do today. We read off the names of the officers, sound the bell. We invite dignitaries, the press, law enforcement, politicians. We've had senators, mayors. We've had lieutenant governors. We've had many law enforcement. If you want to get involved, if you want to offer up your church, your school, or a large or even a medium-sized facility, even a large meeting room that holds 15, 20, 30 at your business, send an email, helpdesk@privateofficer.com, helpdesk@privateofficer.com. Don't forget to listen to the Private Officer Beat Radio every week on the iHeartRadio network, as well as Apple. Where else? Wherever you can get your music and podcasts downloaded, and we're expanding this to include many other entities that you'll be able to download our weekly radio show. That reminds me, did you catch the last episode of the LP Zone, the Loss Prevention Zone? Well, we've been kind of leaving that behind, but every other week you can catch it on Saturday morning right here on the Private Officer Beat Radio. And we're going to come right back here in just a few minutes and tell you what else is happening. Remember, check out our friend, if you're in the Charlotte metropolitan area, call John over at Premier Training Academy if you need any North Carolina PPS training or the sled training or first aid, firearm. Contact Premier Training Academy.
I'm a high school math teacher, and I'm a firefighter. Man, we're going to have you out in just a minute, okay? I'm a designer.
I'm a retired VP in business.
And I'm a student.
I'm a mother.
I'm a business analyst, and I'm a volunteer firefighter.
You thought we just fought fires? Firefighters get trained to do so many things.
Right here. Get sharp.
What we do is serious business.
Three-quarters of the nation's first responders are volunteers. That includes here in Connecticut. And lately, it's been harder than ever, with fewer citizens volunteering.
From teenage cadets like me
to seasoned veterans like me.
So what are you waiting for?
You ready to make a difference?
Ready to join our team?
Your community needs you. We need you. Visit everydayheropt.org or stop by your local firehouse today and take the first step of joining your fire department.
And welcome back to the Private Officer Beat Radio. You know, over the last few weeks, we've been talking quite a bit about private policing, private law enforcement, and even had a two-part series talking about what private policing really is, what the authority of private police officers are, what the training requirements are, and much more. We even talked about how it's really becoming a business, because more and more companies, state and federal government agencies, hospitals, colleges, and others are asking for the service. With the defund me still not quieted down, police agencies still not able to recruit enough officers, and with crime, violent crime, on a serious uptick, I see it as a prime time opportunity for those who want to provide an upgraded service to their community. And private policing, recognized now in 30 or more states, probably will become a national statute. Maybe not in places like California, or maybe even not Seattle or Portland, Oregon, but definitely in most of America. Private policing is not new. It's been used for years in the UK, Australia, and other companies. We are not trying to push the subject, only to inform, prepare, and present opportunities for people who have either the experience or the desire to provide those private law enforcement services. So, we here at Private Officer International, along with Armor College and with a private investment group, have decided now is the time for us to help people to not only recognize what this is all about, but to prepare themselves to become a private law enforcement agency to offer superior, supreme public safety services and law enforcement services. So we've decided to immediately begin both an online and in-classroom private police academy. We are not talking about security guards. We're not talking about security officers. We're not talking about someone who can conduct a private citizen's arrest. No. In fact, a security company owner in California contacted me during the past few days to say, I have heard about what you're doing with private policing, and I'm not sure I'm on the bandwagon. I'm not sure that I'm with you on this, because security companies should not be able to use the word police. Well, I tried to inform the gentleman that many hospitals and schools and government agencies have internal private police agencies, and states also authorize private police agencies to form and provide services. This goes back to the 1800s. This is nothing new, but because of what's happening, the environment, the climate of policing in America, this is coming to the forefront. Many people don't even understand, don't even realize the difference between a private police officer and a public police officer, and that's because there's not really a whole lot other than public police are funded by your tax dollars, and private police are funded through private funds of the business or the agency. It's not really too difficult to understand, and yet people don't get it. So we're going to put forth the time, effort, and expenses of starting up the online and physical classes that will authorize you to immediately apply for and be accepted as private law enforcement with all the authority of any law enforcement agency in the country. Of course, you're going to have jurisdiction limitations just like any agency. It doesn't matter if you're with Boston, Cincinnati, or San Francisco. They have limitations. However, we believe that now is the time for some people to really begin thinking about offering more upscale and services that can provide a whole realm of public safety services to gated communities and large private communities and entities like hospitals and colleges, like we said, as well as state and federal agencies. If you look on the web and go to Washington, D.C., there's about 65 to 7,500 private police officers there called special police. In North Carolina, the same thing. They are called company police. Some states have peace officers, and other states have special police officers. It all means the same. Whether you are a city police officer in Los Angeles or a private police officer at a college, you are a peace officer, a law enforcement officer, a police officer. So in the upcoming weeks, be looking for the rollout of the brand new Private Police Academy by Armor College, as well as an online course. We're offering that right now, how to become a private law enforcement officer or agency. And also look for all of the online additional curriculum, material, how-to that's coming out in the next few weeks. It's not that we're trying to take advantage of the situation, but if you're going to go out and do this anyways, we have the know-how, we have the background, the experience to put you on the right track and make sure that you are doing it correctly. Along with the Private Police Academy, it will certify you to be a peace officer, a special police officer, a constable, a park ranger with all law enforcement authority, and other positions as well. You can contact Help Desk at Armor College, ARMOUR college.org for further details. But like I said, in the next few weeks, we'll be rolling it out in earnest, completely, and you'll get those emails if you already signed up to our email alert system. If not, go to our website at privateofficer.org or armorcollege.org and sign up for those email alerts right now. Whew. We have a lot of other things happening here. If you want to participate, you want to be a board member, you want to be on the award committee, you want to be part of the benevolent services, contact helpdesk at privateofficer.com. Helpdesk at privateofficer.com. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. We got a lot more to talk about. We're certainly going to be talking about the news. And this week, we're going to talk about the reality of being a security officer. Hundreds and thousands killed in the past 18 years since we began this association, this organization, and just in the last 15 months. Tragic events. 31 security officers murdered already in 2021. One just in the last 3 days that took place in Wichita, Kansas. A security officer working at a Quick Trip, which is a convenience store, gas station, very large and well known in many parts of the country. He got into a confrontation and he lost his life. You're listening to the Private Officer Beat Radio, and we are coming right back. Hey everyone, you're listening to the voice of the Frontline Protector right here on the Private Officer Radio Network. Now don't go away, because we are coming right back when we've got a whole lot more right here on the Private Officer Beat Radio.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe.
And to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To not
look the other way.
It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us, all of us,
to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Out here in the field, I found lying in this casket. Oh yeah, that's right. I'm dead. I got shot. I'm not supposed to be dead. I'm only 17. And now I can't see my 18th birthday because I'm a fatal victim of gun violence. My friends, my family, my own mother was devastated. Can't see her son anymore because of gun violence. And everyone's here at the funeral. But before they lay me to rest, there's just one last thing I have to do. It's just a tragic. How many more of us have to die from gun violence? Let's put a stop to this, because if we don't, the next time it could be your child lying in this casket.
Brought to you by Man Up Inc. USA, a proud member of the Gun Violence Awareness Movement.
Thousands of private law enforcement and private security officers have lost their lives in the short 18 years that Private Officer International has been in business and tracking the deaths of private officers. During the past 15 months, there has been no slow up of officers killed on the job. And officers die from various methods, everything from falling ill to being injured to being accidentally struck by vehicles. But during the past 15 months, there have been dozens and dozens of murders. So far in 2021, as of today, there has been 31 murders of security personnel on the job, on duty this year. The violence against officers, public and private, is on the rise, and more so in the last 2 years when many believe that they can do it and get away. No repercussions. No responsibility. The law doesn't really go after them in the manner that they should. You would not get away with this in another country. You would be killed. Go to places, civilization. Go to these places like Brazil and South Africa and other countries who believe that if you kill law enforcement or security, someone trying to protect people, places, and things, that you deserve immediate punishment. But here in the U.S., we are slow to respond, especially in the last 15 years, but even more so in the last 2 years, when a law enforcement officer is killed or a security officer. I am saddened to say that just in the last 15 months, dozens and dozens and dozens of security personnel and private police have been killed in the line of duty. We're not talking about a car accident. We're not talking about someone who accidentally fell down a flight of stairs or fell off the roof or had some other misfortune happen while they're on the job. We're talking about murder, homicide, someone taking another's life. One of the most devastating, concerning, alarming, confusing, and there's so many other adjectives that I could use here today. Murders that I've seen is just outrageous. It happened in June of this year, in 2020 rather, in a small town just outside of Jackson, Mississippi, a small town called Canton, Mississippi, a suburb of Jackson, Mississippi. an 85-year-old security officer, George David Heron. He was just sitting in his vehicle at an apartment complex. We don't know what happened, but we do know that he was murdered execution style, according to law enforcement, multiple shots, and no one knows why. It is still an unsolved case. I'm not here to argue about armed or unarmed, which way is better. Sure, maybe in some situations, if the officer was armed, he'd have an opportunity to defend himself. But we don't know what happened in this situation. We don't know if he was armed. Obviously, they ambushed him. He was sitting in his vehicle. It's just horrendous. Nicole Glenn, just 23, was killed by a coworker. We see other security officers kill their coworkers at least once a year. Just this year in Nashville, Tennessee, a security officer attempted to kill another security officer just because they had a brief interaction while they were changing shifts. Nicholas Fine, he was just 30 years old when he was gunned down last year at a nightclub during a confrontation with an armed man. Trishawn E. Kitchen, another one killed at a nightclub, unarmed, in Columbia, Missouri. According to law enforcement, a disturbance at the club, the security agent tried to defuse it, tried to break it up, but instead he was murdered. And in Spring Valley, New York, Sandra Wilson, an unarmed security officer at a public library, was stabbed to death last year when she asked a man to simply turn down his music. The man immediately attacked her. No provocation, no reason, and stabbed her to death. Browning Luckett was 64 last year in Jackson, Mississippi. And he was shot to death trying to stop a domestic fight. Not at a nightclub, not at a high-risk location. No, it was actually at the Baptist Hospital parking lot. Shot to death while trying to separate two people who were having an argument outside the hospital, February the 19th, last year. Killed in cold blood, unarmed or armed, we don't know. But we do know he was a murder victim. And another outrageous, disturbing murder of a security officer happened in May of 2020. 1 year ago, Calvin Burnett, 43, Flint, Michigan, was killed, murdered in a Family Dollar store, shot in the head after asking someone to wear a face mask because of the COVID rules, the COVID pandemic. Murdered in cold blood, 3 people taken into custody, but that doesn't matter. The man was still killed, just trying to do his job. Dorianne Revel was 19, just turned 19, had only been a security officer for less than 2 weeks. Murdered at a Gatehouse condominium in Boynton Beach, Florida, again, a year ago today, in May, by someone that she knew. You see, sometimes the problems come in because of our lifestyle, the people we know. But still, that should not cause the death of a person. Murdered, gunned down, gone but not forgotten. All of these names, all of these incidents that I'm reading today are real people who lost their real life. Patrick Underwood was 53, a Federal Protective Service contracted security officer when he was murdered during the protest in Oakland, California last year. one of 9 security officers that we have linked directly to the protest. He was armed, and because he was wearing a uniform that looked like a police officer, he was killed during a drive-by. Kenneth Love II, 59, in San Diego, California, a security officer working at a marijuana dispensary during an attempted robbery, shot to death. California and Texas continue to be the 2 leading states, and have been for quite some time, for deaths and serious violent injuries to private security officers. Jeffrey Dabney, 35, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, was shot to death during a protest in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, while trying to protect a gas station. David Dorn, another one killed during a protest last year, 77 years old, St. Louis, Missouri, shot down a retired police captain who was trying to protect a pawn shop, killed by multiple rioters, caught on film. Marianne Abercrombie, 33, murdered, shot to death during a disturbance in the parking lot of a nightclub. He broke up a fight. He thought it was over, but moments later, he was gunned down and left for dead. Ryan Askew in Lake County, Indiana, again, a retired law enforcement officer who was working security at a hospital when a struggle ensued. His partner, meaning to shoot the patient who was armed, accidentally killed this retired officer. Clarence Sterling Johnson was 51 in Greenville, South Carolina, when he became a victim, a homicide victim, one of 10 people shot during a mass shooting at a nightclub. He succumbed to his injuries on the scene. Real people doing real work, trying to protect people and prevent things like this from happening, and they become the victim. Andrew Totis of Glendale, Colorado, was also stabbed to death at a nightclub. Nightclubs are on the top 5 places of deaths and serious injuries to both security and law enforcement. Fontana, California, a security officer there was shot to death at a restaurant in July. Also in July, a security officer in Long Beach, California, was viciously attacked and ran down by a vehicle by a shoplifter that he was chasing. Jose Montez, 28, in Dallas, Texas, killed, murdered, shot to death during a robbery of a credit union. Giovanni Alexander Mejia Castro in Falls Church, Virginia, also killed during a confrontation at a nightclub. There is a theme to the locations of the homicides: nightclubs, retail theft, apartment complexes. Joseph Benjamin was shot and killed at an apartment complex when he told someone to leave. Atlanta, Georgia, October. Wade Carter, 31, Vicksburg, Mississippi, shot to death while trying to escort a person causing a disturbance out of a nightclub. Quentin Cole, Indianapolis, Indiana, November last year, shot and killed while patrolling a downtown area unarmed. Got into a confrontation. We don't know what that was all about. A security officer, Houston, Texas, shot to death during a robbery of a gaming room. A gaming room is supposed to be a place where they come in and they play computer games and they win prizes, not money, but most of them are really after-hour casinos. They're places where violence and robberies often occurred. Fernando Luis Rosas, 26, Los Angeles, murdered while providing security at a concert in December. Richard Simo, 64, Farmington, New Hampshire, he was violently attacked while on his break at the Frisbee Memorial Hospital, beaten to death. He hit his head. He died of a violent death. These are just from 2020, during COVID, when there was nothing going on. Everything was closed down. Everybody was supposed to be home. And yet all of these people lost their lives, and that's just some of the whole total list. Of course, over 443 people we now know died in 2020 from COVID, from accidents, from deaths at work, and murders. This year, Aisha Neville, she was 46 in Chicago, Illinois. She was murdered during a violent shooting. 3 others also were killed. James Cook of St. Louis, Missouri, he too was murdered during a confrontation at the Metrolink transit when he told someone that they couldn't ride the train. A security officer in Houston, Texas, murdered at a nightclub, shot to death. Daniel Holmes, Stephen Daniel Holmes, Charleston, South Carolina, murdered at a nightclub February of this year, shot to death. Paul C. Scott, 33, Florida, murdered at an apartment complex. Tracy Lee London, murdered, shot to death in North Carolina. Martinez Mitchum, New Orleans. This guy was a reserve deputy constable and a court officer. He was off duty working a basketball game at a high school when he escorted someone out of the school in February, murdered outside, shot and killed. Joshua Brown, Los Angeles, murdered in March trying to stop a theft. Joseph D. Young, murdered March trying to stop someone from robbery. Giuseppe Almonte, 31, Las Vegas, Nevada, March 2021, murdered by a co-worker at the Wynn Casino Resort. He was sent just to check on the parking garage to see what this employee was doing there because he hadn't been to work in a few days. The worker killed him and then committed suicide. Tomadio Tim Cruz, 27, in Cleveland, was an off-duty corrections officer working security at a bar, a sports bar, when he got into a confrontation and he was gunned down. Sadio Richardson, 34, Richmond, Virginia, working in a shopping center. A disturbance ensued. He tried to break up the fight unarmed, shot to death. Over and over and over and over again. Timothy B. Young, Florida, violently murdered at an apartment complex. Michael Ellis, 52, Volusia County, Florida, April, violently murdered at the United Methodist Children's Home by teens who just wanted to get out of there. Caleb Colbert, 27, Atlanta, April, murdered to death at a nightclub. Will Robertson, 39, our latest security officer, murdered, shot to death multiple times after escorting a man out of the Quick Trip store in Wichita, Kansas. And so the story goes over and over, on, and there's no end. And yet, very few people know about it. Very few media headlines are ever published. Blame the company. Blame the security officer for not having the training. Blame whoever you want, but ultimately it comes down to the attacker. The blame should fall with them. We need to do better. We need to provide more training, better equipment, better communication tools, better everything. And I, for one, do not believe that we can anymore have a single unarmed security officer or private police officer, for that matter, at any school, any apartment complex, any nightclub. No law enforcement agency would send one unarmed officer to a disturbance at a nightclub, one unarmed officer to a disturbance at an apartment complex. Not one agency would even send one armed police officer to a disturbance at a nightclub, apartment complex, shopping center. And yet, we do it in security all the time. We put them there. They have no two-way radio communication. They have no backup. There's no one but them to fend for themselves. Here's your uniform. Here's your badge. Good luck, buddy. We're going to pay you $9 an hour. I hope that's enough for you to get at least some of your bills paid. Don't worry about it. Nothing's going to happen there. What do we tell the families when their loved ones don't come home? How do we help the family? Most families of security officers and private police can't afford a funeral. They can't afford to bury their loved one. They have to beg, borrow, and practically steal to bury someone who's been murdered. Is that fair? In law enforcement, if you get killed on the job, the United States Justice Department gives your family a large stipend, takes care of the children for quite some time, and buries the loved one. What do we do? Well, we're sorry that happened. Good luck to you. There's definitely a better way. And you and I and other company owners, we better get our act together. While there's been a few lawsuits in previous years where families have sued and won against security companies for putting their loved one in a dangerous position, untrained, without any communications, without any equipment, I foresee a lot more. And there are many cases where we're taking not only a risk or a chance with our company, but with people's lives. Thank you for being with us here on the Private Officer Beat Radio. That's going to do it for us, and we're going to come back. We'll be here on Sunday, actually, from the legal side, and, of course, join us every Monday here on the Private Officer Beat Radio. Until the next time, be blessed, be safe, and we'll see you right back here on the radio.